All right, everyone. So I'm back to respond to comments, and you'll have to bear with me. I'm actually on site right now, just taking my lunch break. So I got to say, technology is really interesting. Like I said, you'll have to bear with me. I'm usually behind on technology. I'm not very good at it, but I learned I can split the screen on my phone so I can sort of read through the comments while I'm taking the video. So that's really handy. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's see, first question here. So this is from Celie Ness. We got, I'd be very interested to know what the minimum requirements are to get approved for occupancy. So the requirements to get approved for occupancy, it essentially has to be livable. And the requirements for being livable, they're not huge. So obviously I got to pass my inspection. So if you have any open inspections, so building, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, those all have to be done and signed off on by the inspector. I need those green stickers. So past that, there's things like you don't need flooring, but the floor has to be covered. So some people in desperate scenarios, they'll paint the floor, and that's considered covered. You don't need trim up, but and I'd have to look into it because I just changed jurisdictions 4 years ago, so I'm not up to speed on everything. I believe you do need doors in a lot of circumstances. If you need at least one functional bathroom, and you need a functional kitchen. The requirements for a functional kitchen, it basically has to have a sink that works, and you have to have the ability to get a stove in. Sink's the biggest requirement. And if you have power, I mean, technically you can make the claim, you hook up a George Foreman grill and things like that. At any rate, the requirements for occupancy aren't having something completed. Now, I don't know what it is here in Michigan, just because when I deal with new construction, it never comes up, not with the builders I deal with. But in Ontario, where I am a little more familiar, rules for maintaining occupancy, they're lighter for an older home, let's say. If you lose occupancy, you got to bring it back up to original standards. But when you're selling a home, a lot of times it's missing things that would have a fail an occupancy test and what have you. There's a lot of things that kind of get swept under the rug when you're buying a home and things like that. When you're building a home, you even need the trim up. The place has to be complete. It has to be absolutely complete. It's kind of like bringing something to factory standards. So it really depends on where you live. Occupancy standards can change quite dramatically. So I guess that's that. Let's see what we got. Oh, I'll find a better way of doing this down the road, I promise. So we got Josh on the tube. All right. Weird question. How does the house smell at this point? After all the cleaning and demo work, I imagine it smelled pretty rough when you first started. It smelled horrible. It smelled absolutely horrible. It smells like a normal house now. Now, there's two factors. All right, eliminate the source of the smell. If you've done that, you've already made strides. The second most important thing, in my opinion, you can spray it, you can do all kinds of stuff, but the most crucial thing is getting airflow. Now, we did fog the house, and what we fogged with made a huge dent in it. It didn't fully eliminate the smell, but at this point, it's been opened up for so long, a lot of the smell is really getting out of there on its own. And for what does remain, we're going to use a good primer on the walls, and as we cover things up, we're going to be taking care of it. But yeah, once again, airflow is one of the most crucial things for eliminating a smell, because you can get rid of the source, but obviously it's going to linger, it's gotten into the walls and everything else. I'm very keen on letting nature do its thing. So, nature has its own way of, cleaning things up. So let some air in. I open the windows and doors up every time when I go in, and especially when they're open, I definitely don't notice much. So we've got Tessie Marie. Andrew, I have a leak in my basement from the spigot outside. I know I have to caulk the concrete, which is against the brick house, but I have to tear out part of the basement wall. Do I need vapor barrier over my insulation and before I re-drywall? So that's kind of a difficult question to answer, because some of that is circumstantial. It really depends on whether or not your basement is finished or not, because insulation requirements are different for an unfinished basement. In fact, you don't need any insulation in most jurisdictions. And if it and your local area, so vapor barrier requirements in particular change quite dramatically from place to place. So I don't know where you're located. You'd have to check with your local code and your exact circumstance. In terms of the leak, though, so yeah, the spigot should be caulked, and if you can, they usually come with a little foam gasket, so when you screw it against the wall, it seals just on that alone. You shouldn't technically have to caulk it if you have that, though it's not a bad idea. And you primarily want to focus on caulking the top half and down to the bottom. Sometimes it's nice to leave a little entry hole at the bottom. That way any condensation behind can leak out. It's not necessary for something like a spigot. But you said caulk the, let's see, the concrete to the brick. So I would have that looked into. So the only way that would really be an issue is if you had an opening in the brick. It should be sealed on its own. You shouldn't have to caulk brick to concrete. Now, it is kind of a fact that no house is completely leak-proof. Houses are designed to shed water away, but not to hold water back necessarily. So you put water up in the wrong direction, or somewhere it's not meant to be, there's a good chance it finds its way through. So just from reading that, I would say there might be a separate issue there. So where the brick connects to the concrete, in some places you can have that below grade. Now, if yours is below grade, I would say you might have a resting water issue, in which case you'd want to consider a French drain rather than caulking. If it's above grade, I would still have some other things looked into before depending on that, especially if it's a finished basement, because if you go through the effort of fixing something and it's not actually the issue, and then you get damage to your basement after you refinish, that's always very disappointing and very disheartening. So I think a few more details on that, I could probably give you a better answer, but as of right now, I would say a lot of that is very circumstantial. So we've got Tessie Marie. Oh, I just read that one. Let's see. All right, I've had comments like this before. I don't think it's so much a question as it is a comment. Oh, that's the wrong one still. We got Old Lady in UK. Bats are protected in the UK. You should make bat boxes. It will help with the mosquitoes, and I absolutely agree, and I absolutely plan on bringing a bat house onto the property. I think it's one of the best ways of keeping the bats down, and I don't mind them at all. If you give them the right place to live, they're not a nuisance. You don't want them in your attic because they do carry a lot of disease, but if you have a bat house, they'll usually stay there, and they're wonderful. And sometimes it's nice to go out at dusk, and I'll watch the bats with the kids sometimes if they're coming out. They're really cool to watch. So yeah, I definitely plan on doing that, just not sure when I'll get around to it. So we got Horace Miller. If you are thinking about putting some flooring in the attic for storage, make sure you put the sheets of plywood in the attic before drywalling the ceiling. So that's a great idea, and I do like having some planks down, but because we're going to be doing loose fill in the attic, it's not going to be a storage space. If it was just being batted, absolutely, you'd be right about that, and it's definitely easier right now. I might do something like that in the garage ceiling, and just because that if I insulate it, it's just going to be bat, but that's already covered. So I'll be dealing with the same issues. So we got Lady Silver Haze 8362. So just to ask, why do you not recommend surge protectors on the panel? Also, how do you feel about using spray foam insulation on the outside walls? And how deep do you plan to go for the loose fill insulation in the attic? So the loose fill insulation in the attic, I'll get that one out of the way. That's easy. There's different depths based on the R value. I don't recall them offhand, but it's a quick look up. I think it's something like 16 inches is what we're probably going to be after. And once again, I just got to look that up prior. It's not a very difficult thing to do. A lot of times it has it right on the insulation bundles. So, and then surge protectors. So I have very little against surge protectors, but when you get the whole house on the same surge protector, what can often happen is they will kick out anytime you overload a circuit, and sometimes they can be very sensitive. So it's happened where you got a brand new house, and you wind up called back because somebody's plugging in their vacuum and it's constantly kicking out the surge protector, and their whole house shuts down. So it can be a huge nuisance. Now, the way I feel about surge protectors, they're great, but I prefer to keep them towards the source. So it's not that I have something against surge protectors. I just like keeping them towards the source and using them as necessary. Otherwise, what you wind up with is multiple layers of surge protection, and I just don't find it extremely necessary. It's also very expensive, and it's something else to maintain because they do have a bit of a life expectancy. So that's that. And foam insulation. So I do have opinion about that. So when we insulate homes, we place a lot of focus on R value. So that's resistance. That's basically resistance to heat transfer. Now, what goes very parallel to R value is what we refer to as ACH 50. And I'm not going to go too technical, but what that stands for is air changes per hour at 50 pascals of pressure. So in layman's terms, at a relative air pressure, just a normal day, let's say, it's how many times the air replaces itself in your house per hour. So a very drafty house, let's say R0 to R10, these would be a lot of older homes, and probably what ours is right now, especially with the attic out. Ours is definitely, probably an R5 at the most, until I get the place done. So it's changing out air very regularly, and air changes are a good thing. Now, if you have too many, it means that you have an extremely drafty house. Let's say, the average modern build done to code, you're looking at something like it's a R10 to R30 value. And with those, I want to say it's probably 3 to 5 air changes per hour. And then you start getting into the R40 and up. And this is a very tight home. So at that insulation value, at that R value, you're looking at 1.5 changes per hour. And that's very low. So when you get into high R values, a natural consequence of that is that you eliminate air transfer. And when you eliminate it too low, you wind up needing mechanical air replacement systems. I forget the technical terms for them, but essentially you need, a machine to cycle air in and out of your house. And my opinion is I prefer to let nature do its thing. I think I said that earlier. I don't like depending on a machine to get fresh air in my house. If that machine fails, you can wind up with mold very, very quickly. It affects air quality. Your house, because you're living there, it's slowly going to fill with carbon dioxide and things like that. And, probably not enough to kill you, but it has an impact. There's a lot of downsides. I like the idea of having good airflow. And when it comes to insulation, my focus is generally on, having enough to make it effective and relatively efficient. Obviously, having a very high R value is going to save you a bit of cost down the road. It's it's going to be a lot easier to heat your home and keep it heated, but there are consequences. Now, I think another thing to consider is that R values are going up. Without sacrificing a lot of these things, technology does have that impact, and I think it's just a bit of a waiting game until we can get those higher R values while still maintaining good airflow. But generally, air transfer in and out does impact the interior temperature. In terms of spray foam, specifically though, spray foam seals incredibly well, so that's why I don't like the idea of doing the entire house in that, because it's like you're creating a cooler, and it's just not a very natural way to live, in my opinion. But there are a lot of places where it is incredibly appropriate, like doing the rim joist, or if you have a section that's cantilevered out of your house, doing the underside. It's best in places like that. So, but I'll move on from there. Ah, yes, I did find this. So we've got Hef 107, and I read this, and my apologies to Hef. So, Andrew, it shocked me that you led off with my comment, RE qualifications. As I had said in the following comment, it was not at all a criticism. By the knowledge that you share in a number of specialties, I just wondered how so many years spent getting all these tickets. Your experiences have obviously been a great teacher. Some of my qualifications have also been in the way this season people I have worked with. Oh, yeah, sorry, I misread that. By the way, I am 75-year-old, very happy dad and granddad. Congratulations. And have been watching in awe you and your family and journey on this project. Would love to share with you some thoughts. RE kitchen powder room stairway. Take care, John. Yeah, your thoughts are always welcome. And I apologize if it was taken the wrong way. In the last video, John, now I know your name, what I meant to do with that is to say that you were making you made a very valid, you had a very valid question, because like I said, there's a lot of people watching, more than I could really address one by one, and it's a very appropriate question. Why should we watch you? What are your qualifications? And I was, in a sense, trying to defend you because I invite the questions. I think it's fine, and I invite criticism. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for criticism. And I never once took your comments the wrong way, you should know. So at any rate, I'll just leave it at that. So let's see, next we have Kathy Hack, 6212. I've heard you talk about an addition. Where in your house would that go? We don't know. The plans aren't finalized with that, but we are thinking of doing it on the back side of the house, just because the one side has the septic field, the other side is close to the property line. The front is just a little bit hard to work with, but we got lots of room and lots of ways of tying in at the back and making the structure look nice. So we got Deborah Heskin, 428. Are you reusing the ductwork? Short answer is yes. Long answer is not all of it. So if it's incredibly damaged or anything we're rerouting, because we we will be rerouting a bunch of ducts. Well, not a bunch, but for what is remaining, we will be getting it cleaned by a professional company. They come in and they vacuum it out. They do amazing work. Even out of a small duct system like ours, they're still going to take a decent amount of garbage out of there. So that will be taken care of, but it's just a steel pipe, so as long as, like I said, there's not too much damage and it's manageable, I'm definitely going to be leaving it. We got Shira's Song Music, or is it Shira? Either way. Why did you choose carpentry rather than the electrical or other trades? I fell into carpentry. I just started doing it and I liked it. Um, and I eventually came to like it. I went in a little bit reluctantly. That's not actually the direction I wanted to go when I got out of high school. I've always been in trades my whole life. Um, but I don't know. I started doing it, and eventually I developed an appreciation. Just really loved it, and I loved that it's part of the process, start to finish. When you're in the technical trades, you're only part of a single process, and I like the big picture. I like being a part of the whole project, so I think that's a lot of what keeps me in. We got Ona Mission Eyes. Hope I said that right. How long do you think it's going to take to move in? So what we have right now is not so much a move-in date as a moving date. The date is constantly moving. A lot of it's based on the time and availability I have after my regular job. So it's very hard to narrow down a date. If this was my full-time job, I'd probably be moving in soon, but it's not. So things happen, life happens. If I get sick, I'm down, and realistically, I only get after work maybe 3 hours of solid work time in a day. So it's not a whole lot. And then, Saturdays I get a lot more. But we're trying to do this as cheaply as possible, which means reusing materials, dealing with used materials, sourcing materials, things like that is a bit of a unique challenge rather than just, getting it from the same lumber yard and ordering everything in. So there's a few unique challenges, and obviously I'm doing a lot of the work myself. And some things like electrical and plumbing, for instance, I don't do them regularly, so I'm not as fast, and it's hard for me to predict exactly how long it's going to take because I don't do it often enough to really establish that. I can tell you how long it's going to take me to do the floors or the cabinets and things like that. That's a little more my expertise. But I think right now I would say we're probably closer to December. But that could change. So don't quote me on that. All right, so here we've got Jean Ellen. I have a question. I'm 77. I get around fairly well for an old lady. Congratulations. I downsized to a smaller property 6 years ago. My house was built in 1951. I'm scared of my attic, but I think I need to clean it and maybe add some insulation. Is it something a person without skills can do? I think there could be bats up there. So, yeah, no, I believe everybody should be self-sufficient, and even if you don't know how to do something, look it up. There's resources like crazy nowadays, YouTube being one. There's quite a few things I'm a student of YouTube University on. And I think, something like insulating an attic, it's pretty straightforward and simple. You're not going to be nearly as effective as a professional insulator, but and probably not nearly as clean either. But one thing to be said, especially if it's the homeowner doing it, is nobody's going to care about your house more than you. So the odds that you're going to take the time to do the job well, regardless of how long it takes, are substantially higher than hiring, a contractor to do it. So I think absolutely. I mean, going in an attic though, I mean, maybe find I don't want to come off the wrong way, but find somebody who's young and capable, because attics are very, very difficult to move through, and a lot of people get hurt doing it. So you got to be able to walk along the trusses and things like that. But yeah, no, I think absolutely. It's not a hard thing to research. You can rent the hoppers from a place like Home Depot's, and you can loose fill your own attic. You go by the rental department. They've got 6 or 7 of them lined up usually. It's a pretty common thing to rent, and they come in bundles. You put them in, and you just spray it back, and But look things up to make sure you're doing it well. Make sure you're putting in your baffle vents, and you're getting your insulation or your ventilation proper and all that while you're up there. But absolutely, just do your research first. That's all. But I think, yeah, absolutely. All right, so I've run down the list. I'm not sure if I've missed any, but I'm more than happy to do this again. So if you have any questions, even if it's related to your own project or your own home or something that's going on, feel free to throw them in the comment section. I'm happy to, answer them or give my 2 cents. Anyway, even if I don't answer them. But yeah. A lot of good questions on here, and I hope to see more. So till next time, I'll see you.